case somebody wants to use it.
All right, so basically, off our thing here. I was gonna do an IBIP overview, but we can do that, a real quick one for our team members. Basically, the state group is trying to pass laws. They've been around since 2007 for the security and accuracy of our voting results. So basically, they put up 2 bills right now. We'll just go right into their updates. HB 2225, House sponsors are Linda Chapalavia, I believe, and that's in the Rules Committee. And SB 1197, and that's Christina Castro's, and that's an executive committee. And both of these bills are exactly the same. They're just trying to double our chances of getting it passed. One through the House, one through the Senate. And basically, this is saying that there will be a 10% audit of all precincts on election day. And then within 72 hours, another 10% audit by an outside independent auditor. And they got how it's being paid for and all of the details. You can look at that. I believe we should go ahead and sign the witness slips and let our committee members, the Rules Committee and the Executive Committee members know we like it. Me personally, when I send them my email, I'm going to say we need to include what happens with that data after. What is an acceptable level of deviation? What happens when there's a deviation beyond that? That I talked to the state board about, and they agreed that it should be added, and it could be added while it's still in committee. There are committees, all bills can be amended. It's when it gets out to the floor, we're done. Okay? We put together, and if you want it, after we get our chapter approved, hopefully we'll be voting on that a little bit later. Pass this around. One is the list of all the committees and the members, their contact information. If you have any other missing information, especially emails, please let me know so we can update this. But it also has their Springfield address, and at the bottom of the list is the zip code for Springfield. And then the other two columns, the next column is their local addresses for
We have one, thank you.
where they are. I've already did that.
Okay.
So the other thing I'm sending around is how to fill out a witness slip. We'll have links through our Facebook and in the emails that will take you to a particular bill that we want to endorse or not endorse. Okay, at the top of the page, it'll have a link where you can click on it and you can read the full text of that bill. Next to that, it'll say witness slip. You click on that, and this screen will come up. Okay, you fill out section 1, identification.
The easiest way to simplify this, if you've never done a witness slip before, sign up for an account. Don't do it without an account, because you put in all of your information into the account, and then you go to the bill, and it automatically populates everything. You just gotta check the description, and opponent or proponent or opponent, and then click submit after you've created the account. You don't have to fill out your information every single time. It expedite your process.
Drew?
Yeah.
On witness slips, it always has a spot down here, groups or firms represented. Now, do you want people to just enter this as registered voter, concerned citizen up above, or do you want them to actually file their witness slip as a member of the group?
Well, that's why I put leave blank for representation, because we shouldn't be putting Illinois Ballot Integrity Project, McHenry-Chapter.
Well, that's what I wanted to find out. You
Yeah.
don't want people to do, I don't think that whole organization is official.
Or if you want, just put in self.
Self is always
Yeah,
acceptable.
yeah, you can put in self, but I find that it catches the eye a little more if you write like very concerned McHenry County citizen or something on the thing of the fix.
Okay.
So that way, when the legislators are glancing down, they'll see all these self. Oh, this guy's from McHenry or something like that. You know, it draws attention to that, rather than just being a block of selves. So, but, you know, you can do whatever you like.
It does say persons, groups, or firms representative. So if you want to fill that out as a person, go ahead. At this point, even I, as your nominated chair, won't put down the Illinois Ballot Integrity Project McHenry-County-Chapter. I will put it down as myself. Okay. One of the reasons on that, and we'll get into that a little bit later, is we don't have any insurance yet to cover anybody. But then in 3, depending on whether, if you're against the bill, you would put a opponent, check that box. If you're for the bill, you put proponent. Okay? And you agree to their terms. If you're going to send them an email with, like I want to do on these 2 bills myself, you would check written statement file, and that would be sent to the email of the state rep or the committee member that you're sending your statement to. And you don't have to put that there, just check that you're doing it. And then record of appearance and create a slip is the last button you push. And your slip will go off on that. Got my agenda?
Did I?
Also, if you do the account creation, you see that little the recaptcha?
This is
You don't have to do that if you're doing it from an account. So that bypasses that, and then you don't have to pick a whole bunch of pictures on the grid. I'm sure you all have seen those ones.
Where do you go to sign up for an account?
Same site.
Yeah, it's right on I believe it's in the upper right corner when you get to the website. Yeah, I think it's up in the right. Like there's like the banner for saying like, you know, my house or whatever, and then I get the title bar at the end of the right. I think it says
I've
like.
only filled them out individually myself. I never set up
Create
an
the account.
No.
It saves you minutes.
So like on these 2 bills, I'm going to do my witness slip. I'm going to click off that I'm going to send an email, and then all the sponsors and the committee members, like the rules committee and executive, I'm going to send each one of them an email if we got their email address. And me personally, I'm going to say you need to define, the bill is great as it stands, but we need to add this to it, in my opinion. If you guys want to do that, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. Or whatever statement you want to put, that's up to you. I mean, we're all about freedom of elections, right? Freedom of speech, so however you feel, but that's my personal view. That's not the view of the executive board. Okay. The other thing that the state has asked us to get on is the vote by mail bills. There's 3 of them. 2 of them are almost identical. They're very short. They're only 4 paragraphs. They don't give a lot of detail. The only difference between it is one is for the 2020 primary only. The other one is for the primary and going forward. Our own concerns with that is they don't explain how election day voting. It says you can still vote on election day, but are we going to use the present rules for absentee ballots if you show up? You know, or are they just going to collect it and scan it in later? Are they going to spoil it if you have it in your hand and make you do a new one? If you don't have it, are you going to vote provisionally? And we know how much fun that is.
You want me to go over that process?
No.
Do you have the text, you're talking about these bills, do you have the text of the bills here so we can actually see what the bill says? Have you posted it on? I haven't seen it.
You got emails. I sent them to you.
Okay, well, maybe I just hadn't seen it.
You just got to click on the numbers, but they're only 4 paragraphs.
Okay, so
And it doesn't
basically
say
it sets
squat.
up the protocol just for this particular election?
What these 2 mean is everybody in the state is going to get mailed a ballot for the election.
Okay.
Okay, so that's where the confusion can get is what, okay, and it says you can still vote on election day. So how are you gonna vote? If
See,
you don't
that-
have the
That kind of
ballot?
explains what I'm talking about.
sorry.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is it gives all the rules to it over to the State Board of Elections with no oversight by our elected officials. So that, you got 6 people that'll make the rules. I know most of you know when I was running for clerk, I said that I wanted us to be a pilot program for the vote by mail, an all vote by mail system. After we looked at the negatives and figured out, can we fix those negatives? Or are those negatives just too insurmountable and let's not do this? Okay? The reasons I wanted to do it is increase voter turnout. And John will back me up. Places that have done this have increased the voter turnout tremendously. Okay? And it's caught our costs down. In 2016, this county alone, for the primary and the general election, we spent $2.6 million. Now times that by 102 counties in the state.
A lot more percent.
Yeah, that's a lot of money, okay? And a lot less for other counties too, but just giving you a picture of how much we spent. Can you imagine if we could cut that down in half? What that other money could be used in the clerk's office or anywhere else in the county?
On the 2 bills that you're talking about, not the one he's gonna talk about.
Right.
When we discussed this the other day, since they both require all of the mail-in ballots to go out, we discussed an issue at the polling booth on the day of voting,
Right.
how cumbersome that could get.
Yes.
So
Well, like,
I take it what we're telling our members is that these 2 bills need a
a lot of work.
Yeah,
A lot of work.
not that we don't, not that we oppose mail-in ballots, but
No, we do not.
They-
Yeah.
they
We
need-
are for the mail-in
Detail.
ballot.
there
There's
needs
not
to
enough
be
detail to it.
a procedure set up
Right.
for if they lose the ballot,
The provisional part of it, that's like,
yeah, which takes
Right.
like
does everybody
15
know what
minutes a
happens
person.
if you have to vote provisional, how much paperwork and how much time it takes
Yes.
our election judges to do?
Right,
Okay, and then the whole thing about how much time and effort it makes after the election to verify that ballot? Okay, so that's the questions we were having. Are we handling it like we do now, where you come in and you tell Mr. Toller, our technical judge here, that, hey, I want to vote. And he looks you up and it says, hey, we sent you a ballot. And you can tell right away whether or not they received it back. And if they didn't receive it back, they'll say, do you have the ballot with you? And if you say no, then they got to go through the whole provisional ballot thing.
There's 2 options that spawn at that moment. So if you walk up and my computer tells me that you were sent a mail-in ballot, it'll tell me, like you said, whether or not that ballot has been received and counted yet or not. If it hasn't, if you don't have your ballot on you, I ask you, where is your ballot? If you tell me that it's at home, I will tell you to go get it. Because the only other option I can do for you is to vote provisionally, and you don't want that. If you tell me you never received it, then you can sign an affidavit that says, I never received it, under penalty of perjury, and then I can let you vote normally. If you tell me you destroyed the ballot, you can't surrender it, I cannot let you vote normally. You have to vote provisionally.
and the
Okay.
provisional process is what takes how many minutes?
Between 15 minutes, at best, I've gotten it down to 10.
All right. So just imagine, my point is, just imagine if all the ballots are, if you automatically mail ballots to everybody, the percentage of people coming into the precinct that left it at home, threw it away, maybe never got it because it was delivered to the neighbor, whatever, it's gonna increase that exponentially. And so every single one is gonna increase the time by about 15 minutes in processing at each precinct.
And to an election judge away.
Unless there's some other way of handling this.
And can
And
you
we haven't
imagine
figured that.
if this is one of those locations where they have 4 precincts in there? And the amount of people that are gonna be flowing through there?
And how do you guarantee
Kathy has a question and then I do.
No, I have an observation. I missed the meeting where you guys talked about this more.
Right.
But as one who's worked as a judge and poll watcher and all kinds of stuff on elections, I'm sorry, vote by mail is maybe a nice concept that we want to work on. But these 2 bills are garbage. They are just garbage.
Let's applaud Kathy.
You're gonna mail to every registered voters? Oh, there's a nice way for voter fraud. The people
Right.
from North Carolina will come up and have a field day.
Right.
Going and picking up ballots and sending them in for people.
And that doesn't even,
In the very least, a voter needs to request the ballot, first of all. And then the other idea of having a permanent request, that makes sense, but it has to be a voter-initiated request.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly the point, and I want to add to the point you're making.
So,
and John will
then-
be talking about that
Just-
bill.
Right.
Okay, so you mail a ballot to everybody. Say grandma lives with you, got an in-law arrangement. Mom, you got a couple kids in high school, they're gonna be voting. And dad comes home from work and he opens up the box and there's 5 ballots in there. He says, okay, I'll take those, let me go get my jeans on and my magnet cap, I'll just sit down and I can vote these ballots.
That'll
You know,
be
my wife's an
interesting.
Indian, and she doesn't know anything about that. You know, and mom, yeah, she's watching the Golden Girls, she doesn't want to watch. So he'll fill them and he'll send them out. Well, you know what, he doesn't say anything about it. And election day comes and mom says, you know, grandma, let's go out and have lunch, we'll pick up the kids from school, it's an early day, and let's all go vote. And
Actually,
they
it's-
walk in to vote,
How they picked up one of the guys in Colorado.
and they go in to vote, and it's gonna say, oh, I'm sorry, you have your ballots at home. What ballots at home? I didn't request a ballot. I don't have a ballot at home, I always come here. Well, you can't vote, you're gonna have to vote provisional, you gotta go find that ballot, and then so,
Then we go
and
through the
just
whole
imagine the
provisional-
complications, I could see, you know, bitter arguments, divorce, whatever, all coming from this, but another point is, there's no security. So mailing all the ballots to the homes is a terrible.
These 2 bills they just garbage. They just ought to
Well,
throw
the other
them in
thing
the
too
trash
is-
can and start again. So they
Now we
have to
just
do it
added all
next
this
year.
cost on an already expensive system because now we gotta print them, print the ballots, print the envelopes, pay for the postage, and we're still paying for early and election day voting. So
And
where
you're-
are we saving
You're
any
gonna have
money?
to print hundreds more provisional ballots.
Right.
Okay, so what was the legislation in Oregon, and why don't we copy that, because it works?
He's,
I think we should, yeah,
Let
table
him
that,
answer that
because
part.
it looked nothing like the.
yeah.
Right, we need
That's why I
that.
brought in our guest
I'm with
speaker.
you, let's get that example, but that's something in the future, we have something here.
We've got a guest
Yeah.
speaker that'll address that point.
It is
He knows
my
it well better
personal
than I do.
opinion that any state legislature making laws on this kind of stuff must first be required to work at a precinct on election day.
Yes.
Well, there
Good
you
luck
go,
with
that
that.
pretty much solves 90% of
That's
the
a whole
problem.
nother,
Yeah.
a whole nother.
I don't wanna run into this
Let me let
conflict.
John
It's amazing how people are so clueless with the practical application of what they're doing, and yet they're just so.
That's exactly
talk. Yeah, let John.
Just,
So the state has asked us to be against it, but the state has got, and John will go over the list because it's pretty much the same thing that they said about the bill I've asked him. Reasons that I don't agree with. They're trying to spread some false information that this is an only vote by mail bill, which it's not. All 3 of these are not only vote by mail. And that's what the state emails that are coming down from our state board implying. We have our own other reasons why we think the 2 are bad, okay? The third one that he's gonna talk about, this is something that I've worked with John and Drew Knobloch ever since I first announced that I wanted to run. The opt-in, once and done. You don't have to keep signing up every election. Okay, and I'll let Jen go ahead and speak on that now.
Thank you. Hi. So I have put together a statement. I like to prepare. I'll try not to look at the paper the whole time. So I'm John Spa. I've been a resident of Lake in the Hills for about 20 years. I'm a Navy veteran. I was a judge of election from 2004 through 2014, so I've worked that trench a bit and seen what's happened on that side. I'm one of the co-leaders of one of the most active indivisible groups in Illinois. We try to hold our legislators to account. That's a lot of what we do, and a lot of what our actions are in trying to increase voter participation. My wife and I were looking for something with less anger involved with it. We wanted to do something civic and non-partisan, and we latched on to the vote at home movement when we saw what was happening out in the western states and some of the eastern states with progress in vote at home. So I did my first deep dive into reading Illinois state election law just about a year and a half ago. I found some things that distressed me, and I got time in front of the Illinois State Election Board. I got their 5-minute public comments a year ago this week, and went and stood in front of them on 2 topics. The first topic that I brought to them was on vote by mail. Illinois, since 2010, we put out a statement how we would be in compliance with HAVA. One of the requirements of HAVA is ensuring that all voters have equal access to voting in the same manner across the state, no matter the jurisdiction you're in. Right now, the vote by mail request system differs night and day, depending on where you live, which county you live in the state. All of the jurisdictions follow the current law to the T, but some jurisdictions decided to make it much easier for their constituents to request ballots by setting up online systems that you verify who you are, you put it in once, you request that ballot, and it comes out to you. You're done. You've got about 3 minutes online time, and you are requesting a ballot. Other jurisdictions, the majority of the jurisdictions across the state of Illinois, use the bare requirement, which means that they post the form with the required language. It says that you are requesting this for this election, and you understand all of the legal ramifications of doing that. You have to print that form out. You have to sign your name to it, put it in an envelope, and you have to mail it to your local jurisdiction, because that's all that the law requires. So they have to do that every single time. There are 3 jurisdictions in the state of Illinois that do not put the address on the same page as the form. So you can see that there's differing ways that our state handles it. That was the first thing we were looking at. And they agreed that that was something that needed to be addressed. Even with the disparate level of access to vote at home registration or requests for your form, Illinois, in this past cycle, saw more voted home requests than since World War II. McHenry County in itself had record numbers of voted home. We had campaigns that were out there promoting it. My wife and I and our organization were promoting it statewide, trying to get people to understand, helping them through their questions as they went through it. And we did see the increases that we were looking for. The second bit that I was in there to talk about in front of the Board of Election was one single line that is in the election code that was added around 2012. And that line reads, "Such a ballot shall be delivered to the elector only upon separate application by the elector for each election." That line was added to that provision because one of the jurisdictions had signaled that they were about to begin letting their constituents become permanent voted home. This was done early 2000s. Back then, there was no data, lots of fear out there about what this all meant, and it was really easy to gain support to throw a line in there and shut that down. I understand how that happens, right? You have to take everything contextually as to where we are. But we're 10 years down the road now, and now we have lots of Western states that have adopted pilot programs and full comprehensive programs, and now we have data. And a lot of the initial fears that have been thrown out there have been found to be unfounded. The levels of fraud are not nearly where they are. The levels of participation go up. The costs go down when you go to full comprehensive every single time. You wanted to reduce costs by half. It was Colorado that just reported their costs came down to $6 per voter, which equals a 40% reduction in overall costs to run an election in Colorado. That's compelling. 40% with increased voter participation. That's something that we should really be paying attention to. The first two bills, there was no critical thought put into any of that. That's idiocy, right? To think that you're going to send everybody a ballot and then we'll just figure it out on election day is doing a disservice to work that we're putting in here to try to get good, solid, sound ideas to progress us in a way that the state can be comfortable with in making sure that we can increase people's participation. So we have no support for the first two bills out there. In contrast, HB 3615. Has anyone read the text of HB 3615? Okay, so one of the things about this is we're calling this permanent vote by mail. That is not what this is. This is an opt-in to permanent vote by mail. It does not alter any of the existing text in the law other than to remove that single line that such a ballot shall be delivered by the elector only upon separate application by the elector of each election. They strike that from that paragraph, and then they add a second paragraph allowing you to fill out a second form to say, I request to be a permanent mail-in voter. That's all there is to it. We haven't forced anyone who doesn't want to be a mail-in voter, a mail-in voter. We haven't made any of the people who want to try mail-in voting to commit to do it for any period of time. But we can begin to let people who are interested in adopting permanent voting begin to run that. Illinois does things in pilot programs. That's how we make things work, right? Motor Voter came about in a 2-year pilot program. It was just super successful, and that's where it ran. We've talked in here about jurisdictions having the capability to run their jurisdiction within the guidelines of the law however they want. I know 2 jurisdictions that will immediately shift to permanent voting for opt-in for their people. The one jurisdiction that was about to go permanent and then got stymied by that line did a clever thing. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? The law says you have to request your ballot every election. And so they took one step back and they said, come sign up for this free system that the county clerk is providing, and we will remind you that the election's coming and send you a link to your request your vote for your mail-in ballot. So they stayed within the law, and they took that one extra step of, we'll send you the link to do that and we'll remind you, which is one of the biggest benefits of mail-in voting. When we come down to why do people participate more when they have their ballot sent to them? Because it's in hand. It reminds you. Most of our neighbors don't even know that there's a consolidated election coming, even though there's signs going on. In this case, a ballot would arrive at their house in an official ballot envelope that you recognize. It's a terrific motivator to get people to actually participate. The statement of purpose for the Illinois Ballot Integrity Project. And I'm going to read this so I don't screw that up. You're dedicated to the correction of election system deficiencies and to ensuring fair, accurate, and complete transparent elections. Fundamental to election integrity is the inscribing of all votes, whether by hand or by machine, on durable paper ballots, which are easily handled and verified by the individual voter. The voter's paper ballot shall be the only official ballot for purposes of casting, tallying, counting, audit, and recount. It's your group statement. The arguments that have been presented against the bill, HB 3615, in no way represent an argument against what's being proposed. They represent arguments against voting by mail in general, which I don't think is what we're trying to do here. I'll read my statement again so we don't miss this. So, my organization is committed to improving these areas of all the areas of deficiency over time, just as well as yours are. We would like to see the adoption of best practices that have been in place for several voting cycles brought to Illinois to increase participation in a sustained manner for all election years, and improve civic engagement by providing people with their ballots weeks before an election to allow them to research and make their decisions in a much more informed and relaxed manner. Our organization looks forward to the reduced election costs that are possible when methods of ballot delivery are improved to allow drop-off at secure locations like election authorities that are already providing early voting services. We want to reduce the number of staff and physical polling places that are required on election day. These are all areas of improvement that are already proven in several states, and we think that the taxpayers and voters of Illinois deserve too. So IllinoisVoteAtHome.org fully supports HB 3615. We hope that we can garner further support for it. We think it's the best minimal first step to allow us to begin to learn more about how much our state can adopt voting at home without shaking up a currently working system. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? So in the last election cycle, between my wife and I, we must have had, but from multiple different organizations, at least 20 of those forms fill
Request
out.
ballots.
Yeah, request like from Pritzker, from everybody else. Is there anything in any of this to kind of, because it got really confusing for a lot of people.
Right.
People thought that that was, officially from the state. Is there any way or anything in the works to kind of rein that in a little?
We haven't seen that. Well, we were really sort of enthusiastic that other people were jumping on. We had been advocating at canvassing meetings prior to the election that people carry forms with them because anybody can hand them out. A lot of what you saw there was an effort that came out of the realization that people don't know they can do it. And so everybody in their stovepipe organization said, we're going to tell them. And you ended up with a bit of overlap, and I can see where that would be confusing for other people. Nobody's addressed that. I see it as a positive with a minor unintended consequence there.
No.
What's the county that you were citing? That
Lake County.
Lake County, okay.
Lake County was ready to go. They were ready to pull the trigger in the early 2010.
And what happens systematically when someone gets all of these solicitations that say send in your ballot request, and someone fills out 2 or 3 of them and sends them in?
As far as I know, so I don't have that part of it, but I had no reported case from any of the people. People reached out to me with a lot of problems. We never saw a problem of multiple requests occurring in multiple ballot sending or anything like that. The worst one that I ran into across our advocacy, and this was, I have a day job, we just run a website and we tell people to ask us questions and we do the best. But there was somebody whose student had moved away, they found out last minute about vote by mail, they sent that ballot off, and that ballot never got to that student. I was so happy to hear you recite how that works on, that is the clearest I've ever heard the recitation on when a provisional ballot and when an affidavit and a real ballot. That's exactly right. That student was in a case where they were gone and a lot of fire and fury was thrown at me that, well, listen, now they can't vote. And I said, well, how are they going to vote before? I'm really sorry the problem's there. I'm going to log that as an advocate trying to solve problems. But throughout the course of what we did in last cycle, I had people complain, my ballot hasn't arrived fast enough. I'm a process person. I'm the director of operations at a small company. People say it didn't get here. And they would tell me that on the 4th of October. Well, it's not due to you until the 21st of October. So I understand you're frustrated and it's not quite there yet, but they're still within the window of getting there. This person went about and went ahead and early voted then, and then soon after their ballot arrived at their house. But they were able to go in, sign the affidavit saying I've never received it before, and they were able to vote locally and take care of it. The system itself, I believe, it needs work. We found all kinds of small issues and problems. If I was going to be working directly with the county clerk, I would want them to be allowing us to send these back in registered mail so that people can track them, right? That would be one of the biggest improvements that I would put in there because people want to feel safe about it. Beyond getting to the place of placing infrastructure like drop boxes, which work terrific on the West Coast. You put them in secure locations like police stations in your village hall. It's like a mailbox. You go drop that off and the election authority picks those up and they tally those up on a daily basis. It saves people from the, I don't want to stick this thing in the mail, which, forget it.
I see what you're talking about, and I think this would be one way of getting people to vote by mail, but my hesitance is that within a very short period, all of that would be done solely online, notifying people online, wanting them to sign up online. Would the county clerk or someone official be sending out a notice to voters saying that you can, a mailed vote? The reason I ask is because anything at this point, granted, we've come 25, 30 years into the technological revolution, but there are many people, and especially lower income people, which granted is not a huge thing here in McHenry, who don't have daily access to that, whose children only have a computer at school. The parents, high school graduates, even not that, long before people receive computer training, that using computer use and internet access on a daily basis is not a part of their life.
Yep.
And older, elderly people too, people in nursing homes, things like that, they still have a right to vote. They still should need to be notified that they can vote by mail.
Yep.
And they need to have someone that even visit and help them apply for that.
Correct.
And that's another reason why, because those people do shift so often, and students move in that, that's why I believe it should not be a one-time sign-up. It should be a sign-up every election, because those circumstances can change.
But-
My question is, if we did implement this sort of thing, would there also be a second, would this go to replace the things that are being used right now to let people know how to register for an mail-in ballot? Would people just, well, if you don't find it online, you don't sign up online, you're just kind of out of luck? So,
Right now, the second situation that you described is exactly where we are right now. No one knows about vote by mail other than people running around talking about vote by mail. The understanding of people, so working with the Indivisible group, we found very quickly over the course of the first 6 months of 2017 that we were running through there, the varied audience out there that has concern. Not just people running around with smartphones, you have people, right, who have limited access to email, no access to email, people who've never been on Facebook in their lives. We as a group have made every effort we can to try to hit every medium that we can. A rule on something like that is going to be held at the county level, right? How they choose to communicate. I just received my card from Mr. Terrio telling me that my polling place has changed, right? I would expect that those types of issues would have to be handled. Also, I do recommend that people go to voteathome.org, which is the US site. That is the central site who is tracking all of the efforts across the country. And a lot of the questions that we have about this have been answered, not just in their frequently asked questions, but within white papers that they've run. We have studies now coming out of how were issues like that handled, how were issues of mobility and deliverability and homeless, right? Those are being covered in studies that are out there. I won't try to, right, spew straight from them. I have to also make sure that one of the things that's easy to do is to criticize vote by mail and to pick it apart in small flaws without acknowledging that every voting method that we currently practice has small flaws. And I can identify ones that exist in voting by mail that don't exist in other systems, but I can also identify those flaws in other ones. And so I try not to be overly critical while still taking a very cynical
no, I
view
do
of it.
believe in promoting vote by mail. I'm not a throw out the baby with bathwater kind of gal.
Yeah.
Okay, but at the same time, you have to, I don't want it to fully replace other things. It should supplement what we're doing now, but it shouldn't replace some of the things that we're doing now. If we want to communicate to every voter that they have the option to vote by mail, and there are different ways to sign up for it, then we need the only communication system in this country that virtually reaches just about every single household, regardless of income or age or mobility, is the U.S. mail.
I agree.
Unless they're homeless.
Pardon?
Unless they're homeless.
I said almost.
Yeah.
And in that case, they reach
Yeah.
facilities that do deal with that. But the point is
Yes, they
that
can.
low income,
Yeah.
there,
But you had to have an
I mean,
address, I'm
I've worked campaign and I've worked communications for a long time. And I understand how the voting system works. I was on staff with the Obama Biden campaign, organizing low income areas in rural areas in Iowa, in Ohio, in Michigan, and in places where people aren't ordinarily reached. I can't tell you how many people said, I've never received anything about this.
I'm fully in agreement with you.
So I just want to make sure that as we, if this is, looks like it would be money saving, it looks like it would encourage people who do receive the message to vote by mail and all that, but I want to make sure that it's not so easy to slip into where we preclude other means of doing it.
You and I have the exact same goals. Just to clarify though, what we're talking about, or what I'm advocating today specifically, is for this bill to allow an opt-in into permanent voting. All of those issues are valid and, yeah,
It's
we.
a permanent
Yeah.
thing that I've got questions about. but
You can
we'll go
always,
into that later.
but you can, there's a provision in there for you to say, I'm not now.
You could drop that.
Yes, you can check that out.
I just
Yeah.
want to address Dave's comment really quick. They can vote if they're homeless.
Yeah.
A lot of them use the address of a shelter.
Okay, yeah, because that's, I thought you had to have an address, and if you didn't have an address.
In this state.
Okay, I get
Yeah.
it.
Larry next.
And just,
There is
okay,
a,
Larry had his hand up.
to address some of your concerns, though, I think the bill he's talking about, allowing the opt-in for permanent, that particular person to be permanently mailed the ballot by filling out that form, that they can also opt out of if their situation changes.
That's all that.
But it would address many of the issues that you're concerned about, because however they got notified to apply for that, they would then, from that point on, receive notification as the elections come up, because they would receive the ballot. And they would receive it based on the information they turned in when they applied for it.
But how long would it take after they died before somebody realized they were not alive?
That is, it's the same, so that problem exists under the current environment
Yeah.
for all other voting
Right.
methods. That's why I try to keep myself very narrow in, I wish that I had submitted a bill. I would have submitted something that was a little different than this, but I didn't get to it. I worked all year and I had never gotten that part done. When I saw one come up, I looked at it, I read what it was, I said, well, check that out, it's not even mandatory. You can come in, and it's taking people like me who are interested and saying, giving me the chance to say, let's see how this goes. And then I can proselytize to my friends and see if I can.
Well, the other thing too is like, we had people who walk in with their ballot, their mail-in ballot, and they want to give it to us as a judge. We can't accept it. Would it be beneficial then to have a drop-off place in the precinct where you're at, where they could drop off?
Absolutely.
We've talked about.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, we're telling them, you gotta, you're turning your ballot in, and now you gotta vote, okay, regularly. And they don't want any part of it, because they don't want to get in line with 15 other
It's
people.
how it's handled in the states that are doing it from a comprehensive standpoint, making it the primary.
yeah. I just wanted to add a little historical knowledge to this. That up until the early 2000s, you had to have a reason to ask for
Right.
an absentee ballot. And I was a member of the group that worked to get that off the books
Thank you.
and to make it so that anybody could request a mail-in ballot. And one of the things that sort of spurred that was that people who were incarcerated awaiting trial but had not yet been convicted of a crime were not being allowed to vote because they didn't fall under the category of any of those reasons that were in the statute for them to get an absentee ballot. And that's when they decided, okay, we'll just let anybody have an absentee ballot. So that was the beginning of this whole letting anyone vote by mail. But
Thank you for that
other
work.
stuff, yeah. Well, we had to find a sponsor for it. But
I'd like to address your thing about the dead
Robert.
people voting.
Yeah.
Okay. If you remember during my campaign, I was against the cross-check, voter registration
yeah.
cross-check, because it's not something that is your fault. If you're registered to vote in two places, it's the clerk or the deputy register that signed you up fault for not having to fill out your change of address. Here's the other thing. Who handles our elections in this state? Our county clerks, right? Who also handles the death certificates? Our county clerks. Okay? How freaking hard is it when you have a death certificate, whether that person is in your county or not, to either, if they are in your county, to walk over to the other part of the office where the election stuff is all handled and hand that person
Well,
a
you
copy?
just offered up a nice solution to that. That ought to become part of the
Okay.
legal
Part of it,
process,
yes.
right?
Because federal law says if you have either a change of address for, that's why I'm saying it's the clerk's fault if you're on two rots or they didn't have you do the change of address card, that the law says that you can eliminate somebody off the list right then and there if you have a change of address.
Well, you know, right now, when you die,
Same
you go
thing.
to you go in a funeral,
Funeral director.
yeah, they handle everything, like Social Security dies, there's all kinds of things that they already do automatically.
Right, but these clerks have already got, so the same
Well, I'm
thing.
saying, yeah. I'm
Walk
saying,
the
but-
thing across, or if they're not from your home, this is something since, what, 2013, I've been saying, we need more intergovernmental agreements and more cooperation between the different governments. Okay, they don't live here, their home of record isn't my county. How hard is it to send a certified copy over to the clerk of their home county? 5-minute email? Maybe?
Whatever this is, needs to be thought out and put in some sort of legal ease
Now that-
to make sure that.
The other thing I wanted to address is her concern about signing up, okay? Something John hasn't told you is Indivisible 14 not only is involved with these guys, they're also involved with school liaisons.
Yeah.
And I have been reaching out to these guys, I've reached out to the League of Women Voters, and we're trying to do a thing where between the league and the liaisons and the vote at home folks to help not only get the high school kids registered and signed up for the vote by mail, but some to go into the senior citizens centers and help them register to vote, make sure their registration's up to date, and get them signed up.
Yeah.
So there's cooperation between the groups, and this is something that I've been pushing for a while, something.
The
John
high
and
school
I-
education is a program that my wife has spearheaded, and she has a large group of people all the way across our giant IL-14 district that are getting into schools to, the League of Women Voters gives education every 4 years. We're trying to get that every year.
Yeah, this
People
is
understand.
something that campaigns themselves have been doing, and we actually did that too, and went into senior, and then also went around and had a day when we helped them collect it. We had a day that seniors said they wanted the excitement of election day, so every weekend we had an election day party with cake at the headquarters. We'd pick them up in the van, they could go vote early, and but the point is, it was all done by campaigns or by volunteer organizations such as League of Women Voters. That's fine, but you can't require those organizations to do it on a
No.
regular basis. And frankly, if it's gonna be bipartisan and it's something that everybody needs, it's not the role of individual nonprofits or charities or whatever to do. It's like saying, well, if people need food, we don't need, actual food banks, we'll just let churches or some other people donate it to them. That's too haphazard.
What we found on the education side of it, we engaged with a bunch of teachers. Victor Swanson was one of the candidates who ran for
Yeah.
IL-14 in the primary. He's a teacher, he's very involved in programs, and he's gotten us some other avenues in there. The feedback that we got from the actual teachers who were tasked with providing X amount of education on civic responsibility are not getting curriculum. They don't have solid curriculum that are being provided. And so we're working with people who are trying to write curriculum that gives people a nonpartisan view of the civic responsibility of voting and the options that they have. And it's piloting in some programs now. We're grassroots, so we have no money.
The
So
only
it's
problem
slow, but
would be-
we'll get there.
There's
It'll
a-
probably be who's drafting your curriculum.
Yeah, there is a group that does have curriculum that is coming into the schools. Schools sign up to be democracy schools. And those schools are provided guidance to implement that program. There are 2 schools in Crystal Lake, I believe, that are part of it, Cary Grove and Prairie Ridge. The representative that works with the schools teaches at Jacobs, although I don't believe they are yet a democracy school.
What you're
But
talking about
he
is
might-
civics.
Yeah.
You're talking about high school civics
Right.
classes,
Which is
which in the
kind of
dim mists of
Does not
history, once
exist.
upon a time, in the previous century, were common knowledge, and people don't even know what civics class is anymore.
No.
And
For
maybe
a
this
long-
needs to be addressed broader statewide.
It was taken out of the curriculum and it was just put back in a couple years ago.
Some of the concerns about
What?
the permanent vote by mail thing can be addressed simply by having the county clerks put on the envelopes, address correction requested, so that the post office can, you know, assuming somebody has a forwarding address, can notify the county clerk there is a now forwarding address, and then that can be followed up on. But in my mind, the bottom line to any of this is,
Oh, yes.
does, even though, and there, you know, and that's not a panacea, but when any action that you take, are you going to end up making it possible for more voters, or likely for more voters to participate? And yeah, there's on one hand this, the other hand that, on almost any action you take. But, you know, perfect is the enemy of the very good. And so, yes, you know, having that permanent checkoff there has some problems that maybe will disenfranchise a few people here, but will it enfranchise more people out here? And I think that's what we have to go to, as long as it's not disenfranchising people, or particularly enfranchising people in any particular political group.
Right.
That you're not favoring Republicans, liberals, Democrats, independents, whatever.
And I appreciate that comment. That's exactly right. This is a step that when we look at, based on everything that we've studied over the past year and a half, there's very little harm done, very little harm. But it does allow us to progress what we're doing and to get more people involved. And I know personally, I'm looking forward to, you know, not having to drive out in March and November to vote. That's why I like to vote from home. I know I'm going to be able to vote because that ballot will arrive 3 weeks before that election. I get online, I read about everything on there, I figure out who those judges are that normally panic me when I'm sitting in a voting booth. Instead, I sit at home, I study, I send it in, I'm a good citizen. That's what we're pushing for.
So sending in the mail?
I have mailed mine every single time
I thought so.
without issue.
Yeah.
I do respect that people have concerns with that. And right now, the option there is to drive to that McHenry-County Court and drop it off.
Which is a lot like going to a voting place.
But you do it on whatever day you want to do it. That day that you're going up to McHenry to go check out
Yeah.
the trees at the dog park, you can go stop by the county clerk and
But
do
say
it.
you can drive.
Again, my problem doesn't solve everybody, or my solution
I
doesn't
can
solve
answer
everybody's
I got
problem.
one other
Guys,
thing to look at.
I work for the US Post Office,
Yep.
okay? You can put a tracking number on your ballot
Oh, I know
and send
that.
it back.
Yeah, I know all that.
And so you'll know it gets there.
And to the issue of mobility, there is, within current Illinois state law, the ability for you to sign on the outside of the envelope that you're allowing someone else to deliver that ballot for you. You sign it, certify that it's okay, and they can drop that off for you.
And something, John, that I
In
talked
existing law.
a long time ago is, and I see it at my own village hall, I know we have a drop box for checks.
Exactly.
So you can pay your water bill, okay?
And we
So,
trust it.
You're out shopping, how hard is it to go past your township or your village hall, you know?
You're still talking about people who are more mobile.
Right.
But you can throw a stamp on it from your house and you can mail it,
That's what I'm
right?
getting at,
Yeah.
you throw it in the mailbox.
One thing to address what you're talking about, and this doesn't have to do with these particular bills, but something to think about. It's been proposed in the past, and it wouldn't hurt reviving the idea that any senior or disability facility that has a certain number of 40, 50 residents or whatever, should be designated a polling place. And you maybe just have one small set of election judges there, but the polling place should be within that community so that they don't have to get in the car and travel. to
Beyond
the
that, the vote by mail provision on that, there is actual provision in state law for the situation of nursing homes and other facilities like that, where they do allow for bundling of delivery to it and delivery, self-delivery to the
I was
residents.
talking
when
about
they can.
actually on election day, having a polling place.
Right, right. Then just from, but the other side of that becomes
Right.
we can take care of that issue from a vote by mail system as well.
Okay.
Okay,
Any other questions for me? Yeah. I'd like to, I'm gonna leave a stack of my cards on the side of here, because
So is-
we are just Illinois. This is my wife, myself, and a few other people who are working to get this out. You know, during election season, we spend a couple bucks on Facebook to try to run ads across Illinois. We had thousands of people who were informed and sent us emails. I personally helped the lady down in Washington County to get her request ballot, and then she could not print that ballot, and I printed the ballot, or the request for her, and I sent her that request from my house for her to go ahead and send in. I know that I increased Washington County mail-in ballots by at least one. So, I do hope, I mean, if you have any questions, please feel free, right? If you dig into anything I said today and it didn't sound right, I want to hear it, because I don't want to be telling people information that's wrong. I try to only talk about what I know and, you know, tell you that I'll come back to everything else. So.
You live in Lake in the Hills?
I do.
Yeah, I want to just talk to you for a second when we're done here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
okay, moving on. This last week, the executive board, 5 out of 7 members showed up, and we discussed some of the things, great what the state is doing, but what can we do here to make a difference? And some of the things we came up with, I'm going to be trying, I was hoping our county clerk showed up and I could discuss this with him, but even though he said he'd be here, he didn't show up. Trying to get as many of us signed up as deputy registers that aren't already part of a political party or group that's allowed to do it. Right now, most of you have to be a Democratic or Republican precinct rep. Part of the school system, I know the principals.
Every government-run agency has one, like the school. Each school has somebody in the central office.
Right.
The library has someone, that sort of thing.
Your village and city clerks are deputy registrars. I know that they're allowed to be. Some of the other political groups can be deputy registers. I want to see.
We have some people, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, we have a whole list of people.
Yeah, but are they through the league or are they?
They're through the league.
Okay. So I need to figure out if our group can qualify and we can get somebody signed up. If you can be election judges, or you know of somebody that can be an election judge, we need more election judges.
Yes, please.
Help. That's some way that we can help with the election system. What was it, the primary last year, we were 300 judges short?
Yeah,
Okay.
Those are on a partisan basis.
no.
What's
Not
that?
always. You don't need,
You can sign up
you
at the
can sign up
clerk's
all on
office.
your own at the clerk's office.
Yes, but you have to declare that you are a Republican
Or
or
a
a
Democrat,
Democrat.
yes. You still have to declare
Yeah,
what
you
party
do.
you
And-
belong.
And you can't be nonpartisan?
No.
No.
Huh.
That's maybe another law that should be.
That's
Why is
another
that? Yeah.
But,
What,
and the
Because
parties,
the law says you
I'm
have-
sorry if you may not know this, but the parties have been checking that stuff, because if you're signed up as the Democratic election judge, you're taken as a representative of that party when you're working. And if you're really not a good representative for whatever reason,
You can be challenged.
you can be challenged. And,
and in a primary, you have to take the ballot of
Right.
the party that you registered to represent.
so we would have, not so much anymore.
With
We had
primary,
a lot
yeah.
of situations where there was a husband and wife who were election judges in a precinct. And one was Republican and one was Democrat. And so we went and we just do that so we can work together. You're not gonna be doing that anymore, darling. And you're supposedly representing one party or the other, and you're the Republican judge and you're sitting there trash talking the Republican Party. Of course, you shouldn't be talking anyway, but it, you know, things like that happen. So since it's still partisan, you do kind of have to watch that, and the parties are watching it. And so if you bid, you may find yourself not an election judge anymore, just, you know.
Right.
We should take a little break before we get on to the last one.
Well, let's just finish up these last. Poll watchers, again, you either have to sign up as a poll watcher through one of the political parties, or a candidate can sign up poll watchers for you. They can sign the paperwork.
Well, organizations too, League has poll watchers.
Yeah, League has poll watchers that are nonpartisan.
Right,
We're watching process.
so, and
big one-
candidates, you can sign up for a candidate. And
And-
that's not necessarily because you're partisan one way or
Right.
the other.
During the public comments last meeting, Mr. Terrio got banged on the electioneering at the polling places pretty well. And he replied, even though his judge's guide says that churches and schools are exempt from the electioneering laws, that he is, in his guide that he's just put out, it says that the schools and churches are exempt from allowing 100 feet from, if it's on their property where that 100-foot line stops, they can still, because they're a private place, tell you to get the hell off their property.
So that's why they kept pulling them.
Oh, that's okay.
But he said that he was going to go ahead and make sure that the contracts and agreements that he signs with these new ones reflect that they must allow electioneering on their property if it falls outside that 100 foot. I
Trouble
know.
is, the place I'm at, that's in the middle of a paved parking lot. It's a little tough to get that sign in the ground.
Yeah. Or a cone. Put a
Well, it's
cone
often,
or a-
it's over where there's grass, but nobody can see it, you know.
Okay.
But they abide by it.
I know how we can find out if he kept his word, but I really don't want to be the one to implement this. So if anybody would like to sort of like FOIA his office and ask for copies of the agreements with these private places to see if he kept his word and said that he's putting a clause in there that they must allow us. That gentleman there had a dumpster dive at least 4 times on election day to get signs out because they kept putting them in the dumpster.
I'm gonna say they were nonpartisan because they dumped the Republicans as well as the Democrats.
Well, Drew, what would be the date, effective date going forward where it should be in the contracts? So if you were gonna make a FOIA request, you can reference, I want every contract from what date forward?
I thought he said he was gonna try this one.
Yeah. So the
I think
April
he
2nd
said it was this election, he was gonna.
So when they do contracts, it's a brand new contract for every election cycle?
As
Yes.
far as, yeah.
Okay.
The way he explained it
That
was.
question's irrelevant then.
Every election day, it's a new contract. It's
Okay.
not one of those 3-4 year contract deals. It's,
Yeah,
Yeah, but if someone FOIAs that you don't want to get 300 things, you could just ask perhaps for the sample contract that is in effect,
Okay.
that is being used.
I
Because I
haven't
can
had a
see that.
chance to really look over it, but I do know he's got a golf club now he added. There's like
Rexdale
8.
Golf Club is my new club, please.
Yours is a golf club?
I'll be voting by mail, so I won't be going there.